What's going on, everybody? Welcome to round 4 from the Riley's Retro 2010 format tournament I held at NAIC. And if you're wondering, hey, what happened to round 3? Unfortunately, my computer did not save. Some of the recordings actually got corrupted or something like that, so we did actually miss out on a few of the matches over the course of the weekend, which was super unfortunate. Round 3 was a really fun and really back and forth match, but we did get most of the rest of the tournament here, so we will have round 4. Did have to skip right there. This one's going to have Jason on the left playing this Regigigas level X deck up against Phillip on the right playing Gyarados. And if you're looking at Phillip's board and you're confused by that Rapidash, a lot of us were too. It is actually in Japanese as well. The key takeaway for this Rapidash is going to be that it has free retreat, which Phillip says was really important in kind of ensuring that you're still getting your attacks every turn. You can kind of promote it after every knockout. You can promote it off of things like warp energy, warp point, all kinds of different things that you need to have a constant pivot into play. Can really swing the matchup, especially against a lot of the SP decks, where if you're relying on using Unknown Q with its quick Poke Power and they just power spray that, you're kind of stranded a lot of the time. So the Rapidash was a really cool inclusion. And then Phillip closed out the turn with an Impersonate for the Pokemon Collector. And for those of you who don't know what Sableye does, this is one of the most broken cards of all time. Allows you to, for free, search your deck for a supporter card and then discard it and use the effect of that supporter. So that's why Phillip was able to use a supporter on the first turn. It was just the effect of their attack with that Sableye, and then was using the Pokemon Collector to put 3 Magikarps in hand. This Gyarados deck really relies on having Magikarps in the discard pile to fuel its Tail Revenge attack, which is a free attack that does 30 damage for each Magikarp in your discard pile. So usually you're doing about 90. You can boost it up with things like Expert Belt. And then Jason, on their first turn, uses a Pokemon Collector as well and gets the Regigigas down with an energy attached to it, and importantly uses Psychic Bind with that Mesprit. So now during Phillip's next turn, they will have access to no Poke Powers. They do not have any effect, and this is one of the strengths of this Regigigas deck, is that you can continually use this Mesprit, use Psychic Bind to prevent your opponent from having Poke Powers, and then you can actually use Regigigas's level X. It has a Poke Power called Sacrifice, where you knock out one of your own bench Pokemon, heal 80 damage from the Regigigas, and then your opponent will obviously take a prize, but you can get that Mesprit into the discard pile to then put it in your hand with something like a Time-Space Distortion, a Pokemon Rescue, and you can continually reuse that Psychic Bind. And then of course you rely on this Regigigas, which deals massive amounts of damage. It has 3 really good attacks between the regular Regigigas and then the level X level up version. And you can kind of just, much like the Steelix deck we saw in the last video, this is going to be kind of a tank and heal, but also dealing out massive amounts of damage, lots of disruption from this Regigigas deck. And Jason actually did borrow my deck, so this is actually my 60, my deck that was from my personal collection. So Jason just showed up and said, I want to play 2010, what do you got? And he was like, I want to play something fun. So I was like, Regigigas it is. But yeah, Phillip is kind of going to be struggling with this Psychic Bind. A lot of the cards in Phillip's deck rely on those Poke Powers. We saw the Broken Time Space come down, but then a big judge here. So Phillip wisely keeping Magikarps out of play. I mentioned the attacks on Regigigas. You could see a Drag Off, which just brings up one of your opponent's bench Pokemon into the active and does 30 damage to it, which would just straight up knock out a Magikarp. So Phillip is really going to want to take the time to ensure that they're putting down a Magikarp, they can immediately evolve it. Don't want to be wasting any precious resources on getting Magikarps back from the discard pile if they haven't evolved yet. You want to make sure that you always have an out to one that you can evolve and attack with. Excuse me. And after this judge, Phillip's really going to need to take turns and time to rebuild, to reestablish their hand, and that is a big kind of knock against this Gyarados deck is that it really struggles against Judge. Very consistent hand disruption, and we have hand disruption, the power lock from this Mesprit, which we did see a super scoop up to pick up that Mesprit and rebench it for the Psychic Bind. So once again, Phillip is going to be without Poke Powers this turn, so can't use that Bright Look on Luxray, can't use Uxie to draw cards like you see Jason continually doing here. And we do see a full bench for Jason. I think really you just want to start, you can start knocking out your own Pokemon to get energy accelerated from the discard pile. So, oh yeah, that's another key element of this Regigigas sacrifice Poke Power is that it also gets to accelerate energy from your discard pile when it does that. So heal 80, knock out your own Pokemon, and also accelerate energy. And then you see the kind of synergy with this deck. You just play a bunch of disruptive Pokemon, and you have a really big, beefy attacker swinging for 100, 120 different, 100 and 120 damage depending on the different attacks that you're choosing. And I think it was a little bit off screen there, but I believe Phillip just went for the Impersonate for a Pokemon Collector to grab Magikarp, and Regice. I don't think it was played from hand. I think it was, yeah, it was just the Impersonate. So play is going to pass back to Jason, excuse me. Justin was our last video, and we're looking for more energy. I think that's the one thing that Jason's been missing to this point is just no energy attachments besides that first one. All of Regigigas' attacks cost at least 2 energy, so not really able to put any pressure out when you're doing all of this disruption, which has been kind of a crucial thing missing. We do see the Warp Point and then bringing in this Uxie level X so we can start seeing the trade-off. And this will probably help Jason find, ideally, help Jason find some energy to attack. And then we see the Judge. So once again, just disrupting Phillip after they used Impersonate, got those 3 Pokemon into hand, and then Jason said, no, that's okay, you can put them back into your deck. And so Jason looking again for energy. We do still have the trade-off. We have that unknown Q on the bench that can give this Uxie free retreat. So if Jason's able to find the energy, we could potentially start putting out some pressure. The problem though is that Sableye resists Sableye resists normal. So it's actually not going to be possible for Jason to get a knockout without a DCE this turn. We will need to find that if Jason wants to get the knockout. So there's the trade-off. Not sure what was found. Again, really just any energy at this point would be good. I think the level X's attack requires, I think it's Metal, Fighting, Water, Colorless, and then the other attacks on the regular Regigigas are all colorless, but 3 colorless, 2 colorless. So the second fighting isn't super helpful, but it's better than nothing from Jason. So not the best turn, not the worst, but we did find this other Azolf, which is on the bench. Now you're used to seeing Azolf here like Time Walk, right? That's what everybody played. This Azolf has a Poke Power, Poke Body, that if you had Uxie and Mesprit also in play, your opponent's basic or non-evolved, it's worded some way specifically that is very confusing, but their attacks cost 1 extra energy. I think it's non-evolved Pokemon or something like that. But the important thing is, against Phillip's deck here, this Sableye can no longer attack for free. You cannot use that Impersonate for free, and you see Phillip just passing there. You cannot use Impersonate. This Azolf is also really effective against SP Pokemon because once they level up, they are still technically not evolved. A level up is not an evolution. So that's why you see, the level up cannot be used with something like a rare candy, can't be used with broken time space, and it is its own mechanic. This is the source of a lot of confusion for a lot of people, especially who are new to the format, but it is really mostly what you see that Azolf used against. So but really going to find a niche here against the Sableyes, preventing the Impersonate for free. And then another Judge. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Jason just says, you can never have cards in your hand that you want. I'm going to consistently give you 4 cards in hand. I'm going to power lock you. You can't use any attacks right now. Have fun, bud. And poor Phillip is like, yeah, I got a Rapidash. I got some stuff. But, I mean, you look at their hand. There's an Uxie. There's a Crobat. I don't think Jason used Psychic Bind this turn, but if we see the heads here, and oh my goodness, there it is again. I jinxed it. I manifested that into existence. I'm so sorry, Phillip. But yeah, you can't use any of those Pokemon powers that are in your hand, like Uxie, like the Flash Bite from Crobat. So once again, just going to be, I guess, impersonate with this Sableye now that we've attached an energy. And this is actually big. Again, just showing the effectiveness of that Rapidash, just being able to throw that up for free retreat. It would have been really awkward if Phillip's only energy to attach that turn was that Warp energy, because it forces you to retreat when you attach it. And if Phillip didn't have a way to pivot from that, like if they promoted the Sableye to attack with it, they would have had to switch it to the bench, whereas then they don't have energy to retreat from the active. So Phillip being able to just promote the free retreat Rapidash and then attach to the bench, keeping it from switching, it's actually really like strangely relevant there. So even just in this minor instance, the Rapidash already showing its value in the deck. Also, it's just really cool. A SP Rapidash, like I don't think I even knew this card existed until Phillip rolled up with it, and I was like, hey, that's really cool. And it's also a Japanese print of it, so we love to see the silver borders. And I think a lot of Phillip's cards were Japanese too, which is pretty cool to see. Love to see the retro Japanese cards. And back to Jason. And I didn't quite see what Phillip grabbed off the impersonate, but definitely going to be, I think it might have been a Bebe search to get a Magikarp potentially, because I think that's the new thing in the hand. But here's a Warp Point, and oh no, we're gonna sacrifice the poor Rapidash. Jason did find a Water Energy and a DCE, so Jason's got plenty of energy on this Regigigas. We do still need a Metal to use the strongest attack, which is on that. I get confused because there's Giga Hammer and there's Giga Blaster or something like that. They both sound very similar. One of them is the level X's attack. I think it's Giga Blaster, and then Hammer is the one from the regular Regigigas. And there we saw the sacrifice. So Jason just kind of freeing up bench space to use another Mesprit Psychic Bind. And we see the Let Loose Giratina. So for those of you who played during the Sun and Moon to Lost Thunder format and you hear the words Let Loose, you're thinking, oh no, turn 1 Let Loose, we both shuffle our hands into our decks and draw 4 cards. Well, yeah, it started on this Giratina. This is the exact same ability on this Poké Power. Both players shuffle in, draw 4 cards. This was not super played. It's really good. Again, just disruption. And then also, because you can, in Jason's deck, just discard that Pokemon, knock it out on the bench with Sacrifice, you don't really get punished for playing a 3 retreat Pokemon on your bench, and you can use it over and over again. Again, you're really seeing the synergy of Jason's deck in action here. And we did see Phillip take a prize, so of course that does come from the sacrifice. You're knocking your own Pokemon out, so you do have to give up a prize. But you're really hoping with Jason's deck that you're just going to be consistently 1 prize ahead, and then your Regigigas is just not getting knocked out. You can heal it with sacrifice. It heals 80 from itself with that Poké Power. You can only do it once per turn, but you can heal 80 from it. And then with the Expert Belt attached, it does have, I think, 170 HP. I think the Regigigas level X has 150. So Phillip is going to really struggle to get, I don't think it's even possible for Phillip to ever get a 1-shot on this level X, but can set up, if you do enough damage, you can set up for a 2-shot. Hopefully Jason at some point is going to not be able to use Sacrifice, so we'll see if we'll see if Jason can outlast these Tail Revenges if they ever come down. Again, Phillip is really just struggling to find anything at this point. But the power of this Gyarados deck with that broken time space is that you can just get a Gyarados out of nowhere. It requires no energy to attack, so you can just go Magikarp, Gyarados, hit you for 90 for free. The Azelf will not apply because that Gyarados is an evolved Pokemon, so you don't need anything but the Gyarados and the Magikarp to deal out massive amounts of damage. And we saw Jason just discard a card from Phillip's deck, or hand, excuse me. So the attack from this Regigigas level X, again, I think it's Giga Blaster, discards a random card from your opponent's hand, discards the top card of their deck, and also knocks out the active because it does 120 damage with the expert belt. So really, really, again, just more and more disruption coupled with massive amounts of damage. And what is Phillip going to do in response? Well, we are not psychic bound this turn, so we see 2 unknown cues come down, both of them attached to different Pokemon, giving them free retreat. We see another setup from Uxie. I think there's another Uxie in hand, so 3 Uxies in this list. And like I said, there's the Gyarados. We saw the Magikarp come down. There's an Expert Belt on it. And Gyarados, for a stage 1 Pokemon in this format, has a ton of HP. It has 130 HP. And then with the Expert Belt, you're up to 150. So this actually will survive this any of the attacks really from this Regigigas. So this is going to be a big slugfest back and forth 2-shot war between these 2 Pokemon. Phillip does also play cards like Super Scoop Up, so maybe if Phillip is able to use that to kind of dodge a knockout, if you're, you take the damage from the Regigigas and then reset it with a Super Scoop Up and just kind of wipe away all that damage and take the 2-shot back, that could really swing this match into Phillip's favor, which is wild, again, with how little that they've actually done in this game. And another thing to note is that Jason does not have a replacement Regigigas on the bench, so really all in on the active currently, which again is probably fine. This active has 30 damage on it, so 140 left, I believe, and that should be a number that Phillip cannot reach. And there comes the Giratina with a Let Loose. So again, filling the bench, you can obviously clear the bench space with Sacrifice, and Phillip dropped a card there, but yeah, the Let Loose is big here, does disrupt Phillip. Did already have 2 Uxies in play, had a pretty large hand as well, and Jason's just saying, well, I'm going to disrupt you again, and I'm going to make it that much harder for you to do anything other than just announce Tail Revenge for 110. And this will really kind of be the difference if Phillip's not able to find something like that Super Scoop Up, or even just anything for future turns. So Jason going to, I'm not sure which attack. I think we already used Giga Blaster last turn, so probably going to be Giga Hammer. The drawback of each of those attacks also is that you can't use them in consecutive turns, so you had to kind of switch off between which one you used when, which is fine. 100 damage versus 120 really doesn't matter in this instance. And wow, just like that, Phillip's just going to say Tail Revenge 110. But again, this is still not irrelevant. This is very, you're keeping up the pressure. And again, comes back to Jason does not have a replacement Regigigas in play. There's another Sacrifice. Phillip goes down to 3 prize cards, which funnily enough, they did not take any of those. Those were all gifted from Jason's Sacrifice, which is a pretty funny interaction. And we see the Pokemon communication. So this should find the replacement Regigigas, stabilize Jason's board a little bit so that you're not all in on the one Regigigas. Although we are searching through the deck and not finding a Regigigas. So this deck only does play 2 of the regular Regigigas. You can only play, since technically the level X's have the same name, they were treated as if they had the same name as just regular Regigigas. You could not play more than 4 copies of Regigigas or Regigigas level X. They actually kind of, as I punch my microphone, they counted as the same Pokemon. So you couldn't only play a maximum of a 2/2 line, because that's just how level X's worked. And we did see I'm not sure if it was a fail on the Pokemon communication, but importantly, was not a replacement Regigigas. So we are, like it or not, all in on this active. And we healed it down again with the Sacrifice. We see the Felicities, but there's no other healing in this deck besides the Sacrifice itself. Ooh, 1 heads on the time-space distortion. So this will get 1 Pokemon back from the discard pile for Jason. Gonna use it to get that Mesprit and use Psychic Bind again before taking the knockout. So this is really big. Jason will take 2 prizes, go down to 1, and knock out the only Gyarados in play while also using Psychic Bind. That's huge. This is really, really big, but Phillip can really swing this back into their favor. All we need is Gyarados, Expert Belt. We do also, of course, need to get a Magikarp back, since we know there are going to be 4 in the discard pile. 1 was under that Gyarados, 3 were in there to fuel the Tail Revenge. So Phillip needs to find a way to get back Magikarp, Already have the broken time space in play, and wow, just like that, out of the hand, Phillip has it without needing to use any Poke Powers. Do we have the Expert Belt though? And oh, we have it right in the hand. Just like that, Phillip has the perfect answer, the perfect response to that KO. Gonna come up and once again just say Tail Revenge 110 and take 2 prizes off this Regigigas, tie up the game at 1 prize each. But the difference here is that Phillip has a Gyarados swinging for 110 for no energy, and Jason has a bunch of support Pokemon and an Uxie that hits for 60. And I think, is there an out where Jason can possibly Warp Point and bring something up to knock it out? I don't even see that since Phillip has the Luxray, so I think this one might just be over. I guess the only option is if we're able to get the Regigigas. If it was found off the prizes, you can put that down with an Expert Belt and hope that Phillip can't knock it out. I think it would have 120 HP. I think it has 100 base, so 120 with another Expert Belt might make you live, but no, Jason just going to extend the hand, and Phillip will move on to 3-1 after a crazy match. Well played by both players, but Phillip takes it in the end.